Wait, right.
Charles, what's your day?
Oh, it's being streamed.
Colorado. Yeah. 1 minute west of Denver, right up the base of we got trades, mountains, a lot of trees. Snowboarding, skiing. That's just worse. So, we'll travel to snow. They leak so that they want to put touch on it, they leak into it. So any of the like blockades they have up for the construction, they have like that's what we're seeing. I think it would be behind part. I already know. CIA. That sounds like CIA. Looked at the message. Denver International Airport. Never mind. This is CIA.
What are you guys doing? I love you. Yeah. 2 a.m. I think about you say. Oh, it's live.
Does she come and sit right up here? Do you think that'll be a good idea? So she'll have
It's streaming right now.
It is?
Yeah.
Why would you not tell us that? Wait, why is it moving, but we're not moving it? Oh, there's a delay. Why would you not do this streaming?
I'm taking my laptop down. But I think I'll be okay with the like very share screen. Yeah, for Mike, is Miriam not using Mike? Or is she taking
And yeah, you could sit right here, and then yeah. Feel free to bring like under
Yeah, it is, but we figured it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, wait, so this is Riley, you're gonna give us like the Miriam, because Riley's not. Wait, so I just cut her. She's moderating. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Miriam, where's Miriam?
Is that for
For you.
I need Miriam. Can you tell her that she's or like give like okay. That's interesting. Yeah. No, okay. Yes, nice. Okay. Where's should I start on in a minute? Whenever you're done, if you can't like look straight, just press you all you have to do. So, so whenever you come up here, you're gonna have to unmute it. And then I close. Yes. And then higher than faster or am I sitting to the side? Let's say on the side. Okay, we can talk. So some of them need to ask you. I heard it. I didn't realize. Sorry, I'm used to it. So it was well, yeah. So like, I'll like have the partnerships and then like the highly respected. So Oh, so wired mic one. Yeah. And I just press. Yeah, you just press on. It'll be. It will work. It will work. I yell. Okay, started. Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's event at the Berkeley Forum. My name is Lucy Chang, and I'm the president of this organization. And it brings me a lot of excitement to introduce tonight's event, which is Amal Kassir at the Berkeley Forum. So I'd like to begin this event with a land acknowledgement. The Berkeley Forum would like to take this time to acknowledge that our events and UC Berkeley's campus sit on the territory of the Ohlone people, and that we benefit from the occupation of this land. It is important to us that we recognize the history and respect for the Muwekma Ohlone who are still present in Berkeley and the Bay Area today. For more Native education resources on campus, we encourage you to look into the Centers of Educational Justice and Community Engagement. And with that, I'd like to thank our lovely teams at both Muslim Students Association and International Students Association at UC Berkeley for partnering with us for this event and contributing to immensely for outreach. So I'd like to pass things off to Nishat, who is from MSA.
Assalamu alaikum, which translates to peace be with you in Arabic. I'm Nishat Sheikh. I'm the current Muslim Student Association Communications Director. And we at the MSA are incredibly grateful to have been able to help co-host this event and co-host Amal Kassir here on our UC Berkeley campus today. So the MSA at Berkeley primarily works to bring together Muslims of different diverse backgrounds and cultures and under one proactive community. And to do this, we stand with the principles of inclusiveness, responsibility, and action. So we're here to create platforms for Muslims, Muslim voices, create awareness, and promote the ideas of unity and kindness. So we believe that with collective action comes effective change. And Amal Kassir here truly exemplifies and amplifies these principles. So growing up, I never really saw anyone that looked like me represented in books or media, but as a hijabi Muslim writer and activist, Amal is one of the few people that I can name who is constantly and consistently working to represent the stories of Muslims. Her writing and activism touch on every topic from untold stories of Islamophobia to the silenced voices of refugees all around the world. Amal has done an immense amount of work for the global Muslim community. She is a leader and an inspiration. Again, we're incredibly excited and grateful to host her here today. I'll pass it on to Hassan.
Thank you. Everyone, my name is Hassan, and I'm the president of the International Students Association here at UC Berkeley. And basically, the International Students Association is a social and professional organization which aims to cultivate an accepting and inclusive environment for students from all kinds of background and cultures. We host a number of social and professional events to promote diversity and culture within the UC Berkeley campus. And I'm super excited to have this opportunity to partner with the Berkeley Forum today and host our speaker, Amal Kassir. Also, growing up Muslim in a conservative country, I think it's really important to highlight stories working towards mental health and breaking these cultural stigmas and taboos. So I'm really excited to hear more and highlight her efforts. Thank you.
Hello, I'm the event manager for this event. Amal was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and is a Syrian-American youth mentor, writing teacher, and traveling poet. She is a program manager of the Mental Wellness Program for Muslim Youth for Positive Impact in Colorado. She has performed and taught in 13 countries and cities in venues ranging from orphanages to refugee camps, from youth prisons to churches.
She hosts the House of Amal Writing Hour every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Instagram Live. I would now like to welcome to the podium Amal Kassir.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Peace be upon all of you. My name is Amal and my name is Hope. I want to first thank the Berkeley Forum, the team that put this all together. It is an honor to be here in person for your guys' first in-person event of the semester. We have, things have changed in the past few years. Sorry for all you juniors who became freshmen during COVID. That's stuff. I'm gonna stand right here for a little bit as I move through this introduction. It is so wild to actually be back on this campus in particular because almost exactly 1 decade ago, pretty much what brought me to stages around the world began here on the UC Berkeley campus. It was Brave New Voices International Youth Poetry Slam Championship, and it was youth from all over the world. From Panama City, we had people from the UK, we had a New Zealand team. I was Team Denver, where I was born and raised, and we came here, and we ended up taking the international title, and all of our bouts were here on this campus. And I was like, here the other night, I'm like, what? I'm like, wait a second, I've been here before. And not only have I been here, but it's like I'm coming full circle a decade later with all of these lessons and all of these changes and this life experience that has commanded transformation, whether I wanted it or not. And I think today, as I sort of unpack my story for you all, I'm going to use poetry as sort of the pillars of my stories that I have built. But really the message that I have for you today is that when it comes down to it, in this world that we live in, this world of ruckus and war and heartache and mental health and struggle inside and outside the home, when it comes down to it, we have a choice to make about who we are and therefore the world we choose to see. The world is not, it's not one way. Perception is everything. And a wise woman, a mentor of mine from Denver, her name is Jen Rinaldi. She got her PhD in trauma literature. She said that the difference between a victim and a survivor is the story that they choose to tell. And so I hope today, as I show you kind of the story that I've chosen, you'll think about the choices that you have to make. The choice about the world that you want to see and that you genuinely believe is possible. I'm going to start with a poem dedicated to my father. I asked my father once what language he dreams in. And he did not know the answer to this question. In fact, it threw him off guard. My father has spent more of his life here in America than in his own motherland. A man who's mastered both languages, unsure of which he even dreams in. I remember the only time I saw my father study. It was in a crowded Costco parking lot, and he did not have enough stars or stripes in his mouth to whip up a response to the bigot who called him something with the F word, the N word, and the word terrorist in it. It's like my father did not have the tongue to respond. Imagine that. A man without a tongue. He was tripping over his own voice like it was a herd of wild horses he could not tame. This man, my Baba, speechless? No way. He's the son of a poet. He's the child of a mother of 14. He is an Arab from Lughat al-Dald. He possesses letters you can't find in any other dialect on this planet. A man whose own sister was deaf, that he helped create her language. A man who has made it a point to tell every joke he knows in 2 languages so that more of this world could laugh with him. And still, he did not have the tongue to respond to the bigot at Costco. I ask my father what language he dreams in, and he does not know the answer to this question. He has spent more of his life here in America than in his own motherland, having mastered both languages, unsure of which he dreams in, and that is because he dreams in both. My father is an immigrant restaurateur. He couldn't pick one country, so he put his Syrian motherland into restaurants on American soil with a bilingual menu, commanding an expose of flavor. And when the customers would walk into our restaurants, when the bigots would walk into our restaurants, and they would know that this American dream was dreamt up with an accent. But my goodness, does it smell delicious here. My dad knows his way around the mouth. He'll crack burghun on your molars and then smuggle parsley into your teeth so he can see evidence of his American dream in your smile. He's not the type of man who studied. The only explanation I have is maybe a man whose mouth is this holy shouldn't even bother responding. Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge what the immigrant has carried. And unless we are of the indigenous nations of the United States, wasn't called the United States, but unless we have indigenous blood, or we all come from immigrants, and someone at some point had nothing but a bag on their back and walked here and had to make all of these decisions about the culture that they were going to lay down, about the foundation that they were going to set as they decided what this new America was going to be. That's profound and heavy and scary work. My goodness. Coming to a place where you don't even know anything about it, only to build an entire life that lasts a legacy. And it comes with its pros and cons. As mentioned, I'm the mental wellness program manager of a Muslim mental health program in Denver. It was reported in a Stanford Muslim mental health lab study in August 2021 that Muslims have the highest attempted suicide rate of any minority in the United States. That's big, especially for a community that completely does not talk about this stuff. And so we're changing that. We're making choices about the poems that we're going to put up. And tomorrow I'm flying back home because we're having a big slam poetry event called Shatter the Stigma, because it's about time. And the truth is, when our fathers and our mothers and whoever came to this country to give us the life that we have, when they came here, with my dad in particular, and a lot of the Arabs that I know, and the Desis that I know, and really just at least the members of the Muslim community, you don't have time to talk about mental health. You gotta build a new life. This is the immigrant hustle. There's busy, and we are the ones who are afforded the opportunity to have these other conversations. You don't talk about depression when you're trying to feed a family of 5, and you got a business, and you're mopping the floors of a Chinese restaurant at night, and you're still trying to get yourself through school. There's no time to think about that. That's why we, this next generation, we are the way makers. We are the culture setters. We're the ones who get to break the stigma. We're the ones who get to have these brand new conversations for the very, very first time. And oh, my friends, standing in the middle of two cultures is such an interesting place to dwell, needless to say. And in fact, one of the, in the report about the Muslim youth mental health crisis and suicide, identity is one of the biggest factors that lead to things like depression, that lead to things like suicide, because not knowing where you belong means you don't belong anywhere. And that's against our nature. It's hard. So this American identity of mine, my mom's from Iowa. She's like a blonde-haired, green-eyed, like white lady. And then like my dad was like an Amal, like with a beard and brown skin. It meant that there was hummus and meatloaf on the same table, you know. It meant that Uncle Bruce and Amal Khalid would sit together and they would talk, and it was wild, this merging of cultures. And for the waymakers like us, we have a decision to make. Who are we going to be? I decided I can tell my parents' whole little immigrant story spiel, but at the end of the day, I'm just a kid from the mountains of Colorado. And in 2016, when President Donald Trump was getting elected and everything, that was a really scary time for Muslims in America. It really was. And I remember I went to the Grand Canyon around this time. And the thing was, people were afraid for their lives. This wasn't about politics. It really wasn't. And I always say my politics is human rights. If people's lives are threatened, then there's a problem as far as like left, right, all that stuff. That's just a conversation. But people were genuinely afraid. So I had the chance to go to the Grand Canyon. And if you've never been to the Grand Canyon, I don't think anything's gonna make you more patriotic than that. I was standing there, I was like, oh my God, America's so beautiful. What is this? This is amazing. And there was like a Jewish family on one side, there was a Hindu family on one side, and we were all sitting there enjoying it, making jokes, and just seeing what was there, and the color, and it was just breathtaking. And this poem is the choice that I made, that I'm gonna recite to you, and it was how I really reconciled my Americanness as the daughter of an immigrant, as the daughter of a convert to Islam in this dwindling place. And here it is. My mama drank the Rocky Mountain water while I was in her womb. My fetus birthmarked in US landmarks, my spine jagged like the Western Slope. My America taught me what it means to carve grand canyons out of rivers. Taught me that even shallow waters can shape a country. That here, you get to spangle your scars with stars. Write constitutions in Arabic, translate the Bill of Rights into every single language. America taught me that even shallow waters can shape a country. But right now, the river is infected with some bigotry and blood. She's been swept up in this flash flood confusion. The stripes on her flag slipped off into a blindfold. Someone put bullet holes where her star should be. She would stop us in the streets and frisk us like we weren't American, like she had dementia, like she forgot she created me. Symptoms of dementia include disorientation. She thought she was painting the American flag in the blue, bruised, blood red of the Muslim corpse on the concrete, and she never called it a hate crime, just a parking dispute. Symptoms of dementia include forgetfulness in the evening hours. Dark skin is the same color as the white hood when the sun goes down. Maybe that's why they're setting these fires at night, so that they can see the difference between us. Symptoms of dementia include inability to speak or understand. America stopped speaking with me. She said her anchor man could do it for me. How could she understand me? Symptoms of dementia include making things up. She said I was a terrorist, an extremist, a sand N-word raghead. She said I'm not American. Like Denver General Hospital doesn't have my birth certificate. Like my spine isn't made out of aspen trees. Like I'm not made of the same roots as all my neighbors. My mama always taught me to pick things up when they fell apart. And as the branches of this American family tree are collapsing, I am doing my best to hold it back together. Because if you pull one aspen tree from the ground, the whole forest will feel its roots sever. America got dementia. She doesn't remember the Rocky Mountain water my mama drank, but she said so herself. Even shallow waters can shape a country. I am certain that's why she put these Colorado rivers in my blood. Again, it's about the choices we make. I know that the experience of Islamophobia and any racism and any phobia and any othering, whether it's the fact that you're dealing with some mental health something, or whether it's the fact that you look different, that you dress different, that you don't have the same money or whatever it is as everyone else, this alienation, it's not easy to survive. But again, if we empower each other through our own self-empowerment, that's the key. We can choose between being victims and survivors. And no one can take my Americanness from me, no matter how hard they try. That's powerful, man. Only because I declared it. I put a flag here in my own realm through my writing to make this decision. So we reconciled that, we dealt with that. I was 6 when 9/11 happened. My private Islamic school got 2 bomb threats that morning. And this was a K through 8 school. So we were evacuated for 2 weeks. And it was a wild time for us because we saw like SWAT team with like their boots on in our mosques, knocking bookcase over. It was a lot to see. We got rocks thrown through our family businesses. There was so much, but we had the choice to make. Will we fall into a war? Or will we claim this as an opportunity for power, for community, and for healing? And for the most part, that's what people chose. Not everyone, though. Not everyone. In addition to this American Muslim experience, I already mentioned my immigrant dad. Well, he's from Syria. And I think it's safe to say right now, with what's happening in Ukraine, war is on our minds, one way or another. My family has lost 49 members since the start of the war in Syria. The first to die was my 13-year-old second cousin, who was sniped in the back of her head while she was eating breakfast with her family. Since then, we have had to reinterpret hope and faith and justice and anger and hatred and love. We have to reinterpret it. 49 people is a mass grave. These are the people my father grew up with, and that duration of time, particularly one event. And the next poem is going to be tied to this. And I wrote this poem like a few months ago. It took me 5 years to write this poem. On April 4th, 2017, a Russian missile hit my aunt's house in Syria. It took out 11 members of my family. These were my cousins. These were literally the last person I hugged before I got on a plane and left Syria. Her name was Salam, which means peace. She was the second body they pulled out, and she was pregnant. 11 members of my family, just like that, from one Russian missile. I got a thing about Russian missiles. Again, no politics. All I know is that there's bodies. That's all I know. But this situation that happened, man, it was really big for my family. And it was, this is the poem that I have been meaning to write that didn't come out until a few months ago about that day. Bismillah. Arabiti maksura. My Arabic is so broken, like cracked teeth when you bite down on an olive pit too hard, like shattered tea glass, bursting chestnuts, bombed buildings. When I speak my Arabic, I am tongue-tied, tangled necklaces, stutters and mutters and sorries, the hat getting stuck in my throat like a gasping cat trying to escape the rubble. My second grade vocabulary tumbles down with the minarets of humps. My Arabic is broken, like a nation at war. Like the heart of a mother whose child hasn't called in years, like a stumbling prisoner, battered and bruised, too nervous to cross the language barrier. When a Russian missile hit my aunt's house in Syria, my language collapsed with that building on her body. When they pulled it out, it was unrecognizable. It was mangled. I didn't have any language left to give my condolences. I kept telling myself, I can't say sorry in English. This cheap currency, this is counterfeit. But I was a coward. I didn't even try. And that day, I was speechless in every language that I spoke. My mouth, an empty birdhouse, and all the doves have flown away. But here I am, rummaging through this rubble of my father tongue, trying to find some bravery, trying with the mouth of an infant, learning to talk from scratch, untangling these necklaces jumle by jumle, sentence by sentence. ما بعرف شلون بس حاول. I do not know how, but I'm going to try to say I'm sorry to every nation on this earth. I'm going to give my condolences to everyone, from Syria to Sudan, from El Salvador to Seattle. I'm going to use this shrapnel in my mouth to fashion something resembling an obituary so that my body may remember the speechlessness that haunts me. My Arabic is so broken, like cracked teeth when you bite down on all the pits. But even if all my teeth are broken, thank you. Took me a hot minute to write that poem. Ooh, baby. I think my philosophy of healing, let's use that word. Imagine that you got like a gashing wound on your leg and it's like bloody and nasty and it's covered and you know it's there and you know it's infected. You can feel it. And you do not want to look. But you have to. Not only do you have to look at it, you're going to have to rip that Band-Aid off and then you're going to have to see what's underneath and then you're going to have to clean it with peroxide. And it's going to hurt. This is what I think healing is. It's facing that nasty wound that's on your leg. It is unpacking it, it's ripping the Band-Aid off, it's looking at it, it's cleaning it, and then it's letting it heal. That is the only way. It hurts. It's hard, super vulnerable. Ooh, no one likes that, not me. But the only way you can fight the beast is by facing him. The world is not looking good. We are the young generation, man. Our world is in the hands of like men in suits who sit down at tables in rooms we might not have access to. I'm looking for Isa to like represent, girl. Where you at with a name like that? Yes. I hope that we'll end up in those rooms someday. But in the meantime, I have no doubt in my heart. And this, you will find this in the Jewish scripture. You will find this in the Christian scripture. You will find this in the Muslim scripture. To save one life is to save all of mankind. The world doesn't necessarily belong to us, but our world does. And we have a choice to make about the world we believe in. That is possible in the world that we see. If all you see is darkness, that is what your world will be. If all you see is vengeance, that is all your world will be. There were times when the only hope that I had was my name. Joke's on me though, can't escape your name, huh? And it feels like my mission, my alchemist story. It feels like I have been put here on this planet, because your girl knows darkness, my friends. I've seen some dark things in my life. But I believe that it is my duty to wash that darkness and transform it into something better. The last body that was pulled out of the rubble was my cousin Dania, on that day that that Russian missile hit my aunt's house. And she was alive. She was alive. They took her to the hospital bed. She wasn't really conscious, but she was there. But at this point, she lost her mom. She lost 3 of her sisters. She lost her nephews and nieces and the babies inside of the bellies of the pregnant women. She lost everyone. And here she was in a hospital bed about to wake up. Me and my older brother are in Denver, Colorado at my nice super secret spot overlooking the city. If y'all ever want to know what it is, hang up. And we were sitting there and we were discussing. I was telling him, I was like, dude, she's gonna wake up and she's gonna realize what she has lost. I swear to God, a second later, wallahi, yo, my dad called a moment later to tell us her last words were, La ilaha illallah. She died in the hospital bed. And my brother and I are sitting, we just had this conversation about how hard life was going to be for her. But we got the news that she died. And we're sitting there reconciling. We are sitting there watching a tragedy in light, in hope, trying to find some meaning. And what we came away with was, in the Islamic tradition, it says that heaven is under your mother's feet. In a war zone, the heaven under your mother's feet is probably more sacred than any other land on the whole map. And her mom is dead now. Maybe she's with her. Maybe there's something better for her. Maybe she did her dues in this life. You know what she was responsible for before the bomb hit? She was the one, not only was she the principal of a makeshift school for kids. They had to like make up a school because all the schools got bombed. The same thing that's happening in Ukraine. The schools are getting bombed. The hospitals are getting bombed. So they had to make do with what they had. So she was the principal of like a makeshift school in the rubble, basically, overseeing older women and younger women, kids of all ages. She was also the one who made sure that the obituaries on Facebook were updated every time they lost someone. She made sure that no soul would go without their name being mentioned so that a family could claim them. What a job to have in a war. She was a hero and she did her part. And yes, we lost her. There was like this hope, like maybe she's gonna make it. And she didn't. And we made the choice to see this as a beautiful gift for a beautiful person who did their part. It's hard out there. But wash heartache with something. Purify it. That's what alchemy is. It's taking a substance and turning it into gold. And it's not easy, and it's done with fire, and it's done with remarkable heartache and bruises on your hands. But the choices that we make are going to determine the world that we live in. And I hope we make the right choice. The choice to face the beast, to rip that nasty Band-Aid off that nasty wound and clean it finally, and to actually tell our story. How can we even know who we are unless we unpack the moments that define us? I'm a huge preacher of journaling, my friends. Pick up a pen and write, not because you're a writer, but because writing is thinking. It is just thought on paper, and then you can change it. It doesn't have to be one way. I thank you all for listening, and I think we're gonna like segue into like a whole other conversation, but as we walk out there in the world today, seriously, look for the roses in the cracks of the concrete. Look for the purple flowers among the smoke. And thank you all for listening to me. That's it.
Actually, I'd like to welcome our student moderator, Miriam Sharif, to the stage.
Thank you so much, Emma, for coming today. It's a pleasure to have you at the forum.
Thank you, Maria.
Of course. And just for the audience, if you have any questions, we'll be having a Q&A at the end, so please hold those for the end. So Emma, I wanted to begin with your name, which means hope in Arabic, and it's the introduction to many of your speeches as it was today. What message do you seek to convey when you introduce this translation at the beginning of your performances?
You know, I heard so much about like how people pronounce your name. And for me, the importance is you don't have to say it right, but I want you to know what it means. And hope means something to everyone. When you like walk into like Ross and Marshalls, you like see like hope and love and faith on like those little like, you know, cardboard. So it means something. So I think my hope is just that I'm gonna scatter something that you are very familiar with, that you can remember me by, even if you can't pronounce my name right.
Thank you for sharing that. And on this topic of identity, a dominant component of your storytelling is your Muslim identity. Over the years, as you have written and performed, how do you engage with your religion and spirituality through poetry? And have you found that you become more in tune with this part of yourself through that?
What a question. I love that. There is a unique experience that I think the American Muslim goes through, and that is that they often learn, so whatever they learn in the home is one thing, but once they're out in the world, they're learning their religion from the messaging on the TV. So when I first started writing, a lot of the nature of my writing was standing up against the Islamophobia, or correcting the misconceptions about women, or you know, trying to like cleanse. It was very reactionary. So I was engaging with my religion in a much more intellectual way, in a much more like academic sense, in the debate environment, reacting to what like Pamela Geller's saying on Fox News and stuff like that, you know. So, but over time, it was actually one of my midlife crises. We were talking about our bitter IU midlife crises earlier today. Many to come, you know. I'm 26, by the way, everybody. I'm 26 years old, so they don't stop. But there was this point where I did not know who I was. Now that I conquered all of the debates and all of the anti-Muslim whatever, then I arrived at myself and I'm like, who am I and what is my relationship with my God? That was huge. That happened to me probably about 17 or 18 years old. And so writing actually allowed me to explore where I was at in my challenges, because you wrestle with religion always, and it helped me like figure out where the flaws were, and it helped me to just identify what was actually going on. And then I was able again to alchemize it and then turn it into something that was actually meaningful and powerful and drawn from the Islamic stories like Kassir. What does that mean? And the writing allowed me to engage with my religion and make connections that I don't think I otherwise could have. You know, and there were so many phases. The reactionary phase, the I don't even know who I am anymore phase, and then the empowerment, spiritual empowerment phase, where I'm not writing for Fox News, I'm not writing for like a white audience who wants to like hear my corrections, but it's actually to ascend.
expanding upon this topic of development and growth, in your TED Talk, Sadness as a Tool of Activism, you talk about how you've shifted from stories of anger and acting reactionary to stories of sadness. How have you seen this tonal shift affect the reactions of your audience when you perform?
I really believe that sadness is behind all of the violence. It's behind all of the heartache, and it's behind all of the love. And I think with sadness, I've seen it with my eyes performing. Where a US veteran who's been overseas to Muslim countries, if you zoomed out, there's no way we would be friends. And here we are sharing stories, crying together. Sadness is where I believe we should source our humanity from. And I think that is the realm that literally expands your heart. And so in my experience, anger is intense, it's fun, but you can literally sit down and watch someone be angry and just like chuckle, shrug your shoulders. Sadness is contagious. It has a way of seeping through and it's familiar. So I think I have seen that shift in a very profound way because we're dealing with humanity now. We're not dealing with egos, and anger is very ego-driven, and not to reduce justified anger. There's injustice happening, and we should be angry about it. But again, it comes naturally from the heartache of humanity, not from, oh, I'm mad about this. It's much deeper than that.
Thank you for sharing that. And continuing on this topic of style, I want you to walk us through the writing process of your poetry. You mentioned that the recent poem you delivered was in the works for multiple years. So how do you begin your poetry and when do you feel that a piece is complete?
These questions are so good. They're so fun. What? Right now we're writing questions. Wow, amazing. The process of poetry. So this is my guiding principle. Write fearlessly and edit mercilessly. Put it all out. So I have like 4 huge whiteboards in my room. Super. People walk in, they're like, what's going on here? But I think out loud. I'm not neurotypical in the sense that she's right. I sometimes, so for the broken Arabic poem, the way that one arrived is literally like actually frustration. I was like trying to talk to somebody I cared about in Arabic, and it was like the tangled necklaces, straight up. So I like wrote it down, and I just like wrote a bunch of just like, my Arabic is cracked teeth. My Arabic is like, like gingivitis. It's like, it's disgusting. And it was so much hatred, and it stayed in my notebook until like 3 months later, where I revisited it and actually like plugged it in. That was the fearless writing, because I knew that there was something here. I knew that this poem was one of the most important poems I was going to write for this like era of reconciliation, but I let it kind of stew in like this like bank account in my notebook, only to then transfer it over. All my poetry I write out loud. Everything. I speak it out loud, I edit out loud, I write and practice it out loud. And I think I know exactly what my voice sounds like very, very clearly. And I think that's something I incorporate into the writing process, especially as an oral poet, as a spoken word artist. But sometimes I'm gonna plug my writing hour real quick. On Instagram every week, we literally I go live, I think it's 9 a.m. your guys' time. And people just come up with prompts and we'll just straight write. If you let your critics stop you, if you keep sitting there and be like, nah, that's not good enough, that sucks, that's lame, that's weak, you're never gonna write a beautiful poem or a beautiful anything really. And you have to conquer the critic. And that's where the fearlessness comes in. And so we practice every single week writing these amazing pieces that really touch on some like deep, heavy stuff. But sometimes it doesn't. I wrote a poem about like a cockroach crawling out of in Texas, outside of Houston, the cockroaches are this big. I'm not even kidding. One time it flew into my arm. I thought someone hit me with a tennis ball. And so the poem was about it crawling out and getting squished, you know? And, and I was like, wow, amazing light. Gosh. So it's fun and it's engaging and using your memory. We were just talking about this before and I loved it. You were talking about how just being able to just write the details of the environment. That's exercise. That's literally like pumping at the gym. It's just write fearlessly. And if there's a piece you need to write, take as much time as you need. Let it be as ugly as it needs to be and then fix it up, you know. But again, practice makes perfect as well. And sometimes you have to write ugly poems. You have to write 1,000 ugly poems before you get at something resembling something cute, you know. And then it's super cute. So I think that might have answered your question. It might have not at all answered your question. It just confused you further. But sometimes inspiration strikes. Sometimes discipline is the thing that will give birth to the poem.
And you talked about your weekly virtual Instagram Live, where you guys reflect and write about poetry. What do you gain from that more intimate setting that you don't see when you perform in front of an audience of 100 people? And on the other side of that, what do you gain from your performances where it's just you that you want to get from a small group?
I definitely think that no matter what, me standing on a stage talking by myself, it's very therapeutic, but it's only output. When it comes to like this, for example, our question, our Q&A, and when the audience hopefully opens up too, that's input. That's like someone giving you a whiteboard and you're just like, here's prompts, you know? The writing hour is so, dude, there have been people who like confessed like their close proximity to suicide in the writing hour. People who admitted to the abuse in their home for the first time. People who are like opening up about like deep stuff. I'm like, I don't have training for this. Write about it. And like, it is a safe space. And I think as a teacher, it's been so humbling. And I realized during COVID, because the reason it was born from the fact that all of a sudden, I mean, my identity was stages. My identity was coming and performing poetry wherever I went. And when COVID came, done. And I think me and a lot of other artists had this like, who were we now? If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, are you even a tree? That was the question, are you even a poet? And so this was, I originally did it so that I could learn how to be a better writer, because teaching is the best way to learn. And that made me realize the passion behind it. And I gained so much from these people all over the world who are just sharing who they are and the imagery of their lives. It makes me like, I'm getting all like teary-eyed right now just thinking about it. It's different from just talking, you know, and I've learned way more from them than I think we've learned from me.
Thank you for sharing your insights. I have one more question before we move to the audience Q&A. With the rise of social media and immense exposure to humanitarian issues that occur worldwide, what advice do you have for students who want to stay strong, continue pursuing their art, amplify the issues that they care about?
When you're going to read your news, read a source you disagree with, a source you agree with, and then AP News or Reuters. Go to the, what do they call it, the wire, where everyone gets their news from. That's number one. Make sure you know what both sides of the stories are and what just the basic facts are. Because it is really easy to get swept up in the movement and the emotion and the anger of a lot of these things. And so staying true to the knowledge, I think is the most stable of grounds. But number two, man, Gandhi said it. Jesus said it. Muhammad said it. And every major religion, like, you cannot change the world until you change yourself. You cannot. And I'm like, real talk, when I was 20, I asked myself a question that obliterated activism in me. It made me so confused. The question was, do I have a tyrant inside of me? And I remember that question, I stopped writing for a year. I was so confused because I was like, now there's this internal turmoil that I have to address. A bleeding, gouging, nasty wound on my leg that I have to look at and clean. And it was so important because we had situations in Denver where like some of the leading Black Lives Matter, like heroes, you know, the guys leading it were in trouble for sexual assault. You know, if you put all of your heart on the external world and you have nothing internal to like stand on, and you put your faith outward, you're gonna be disappointed and you're gonna be confused. And the war in Syria was so important because we literally lost all our spirits. You saw people, and our hearts are with the people of Ukraine right now, man. When I meet a Ukrainian, they look at me and they're like, "You're from Syria?" I'm sorry, you know. But we went, spirits were high, only for us to like see our own people collapsing and seeing our own internal strife. And it was hard because we did not have the internal strength to handle the outside world. You have to be anchored. So know yourself. And if you see an injustice, assess what is inside of you. If you see something wrong and you're passionately angry about it, look within. Where else does your anger show up? How are you treating the people closest to you? And try to mirror those two sides. You can give your whole life to activism and come home to just a trashed house. And I think that's where you will find depression. That's where the movement will leave you. And it's a hard place to be. I've been there. You know, so I urge you, one, get your facts right, know both sides of the story, and then the actual facts of the story. And then two, always what you're passionate about externally, look within. We tend to have the biases inside of us against what it is that we're fighting externally. Super deep stuff, but if you are dedicated and you're passionate, you want to change the world, change yourself. Change yourself. So.
Thank you so much, Emma. So now we'll have the audience Q&A. So if you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand and Emma can answer.
Also, nothing's off the table.
Yeah, I go ahead. My question I want to ask, like, how do you feel growing up in the country like yours, which are in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan, whereas your native country, Syria, and of course your family is a victim of warfare? How do you feel about it?
That's a great question. If we're talking about the military, and we're talking about my neighbors, how you define America is going to be very, very important. Yeah. So if I were to honestly, if I were to say, what do I believe is the greatest problem in the world right now? Sure, climate change, yeah, sure, right, all of these things. I think that it is the military-industrial complex. That is the biggest issue in the world. And anybody who's dropping bombs, that's my neighbors, sure their tax dollars are involved in that, so are mine. But my neighbors are not going to be the America that I'm against in that position. The bombs that are being dropped are the culprit in this mess. And so when I want to reconcile my political views versus my social views, it depends on what hat I'm wearing or which hijab I'm wearing. I wear an American black hijab on my TED Talk, so trying to be ironic. But anyways, I think, yeah, if we're talking about the weapons and the people behind the weapons and the corporations, that's the thing. I think we're dealing more with corporations than even politicians at that rate. I have a lot to say about that. I have a lot of poems that talk about that. But if we're going to talk about like the American people, the hardworking farmers and the people trying to feed their families and the kids growing up orphans and my friends and the people who feed me at the restaurants, I'm not going to blame them for what happened there at all. I'm not. The media is going to have a bigger impact, which again goes back to the corporations, man. That's really where I think we need to like center the discussion around. But I don't blame my sweet neighbors for what's going on in the world. And if they have a misconception, then I better stand up and do something about it, right? I have a choice to make. Or I can just be like, all Americans are this one way and that's that. But then how could I want people to not have those stereotypes when it comes to other nations? It's hard, man, because you're dealing with a man's game, first off. You're dealing with a lot of violence and bloodshed and a lot of politics and a lot of ego, and it's a complicated question. But I think to summarize, the America of warfare is different from the America of my friends and civilians. Yeah, that's why I reconcile it.
I think one of the questions that I was thinking about while I was listening to you is that we see a lot of vitriol, we see a lot of warfare, we see a lot of double standards with Ukraine versus Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran. And I'm just curious, like we get so angry, we get so pissed off at these, military industrial complex, the media, all these things. I'm curious, how do we turn that anger, that desire to rip these people apart, to destroy all of this, warfare, how do we turn that into something healthy that's able to inspire others and lead others to become better and to also redefine ourselves and make sure that, we're not being destructive just like these people. We're not these people, we're not mirroring them. And so, yeah, that's my question.
Beautiful question, very beautiful question. Yeah, I know what wars can do to people, man. My father, may God give him the highest station in paradise, man. He used to watch every single YouTube video that came out of Syria. You guys, when you look up YouTube in a different language, you're gonna get a whole other violent worlds. And my dad would stay awake and he'd watch it, to the point the dentist said he has never seen someone grind their teeth down to the gums like this before from stress. So it really made my brother a very intense, overwhelming person. And you have to look at what it is that you're angry about. Are you angry because it's not fair? And if it's not fair, why? Is it because of human dignity? Or is it because, is it an internal inferiority complex? Because sometimes we're pissed off and ready to fight because we ourselves have this inferiority complex. But if this is about human dignity, there are good people in the world who are doing good work, and I say flock to them. Go to the people who are doing good work. And if there is no one, then you have to be the person to do the good work. If you are here to defend the dignity of human beings, then there's a particular kind of work for you. If the issue really is the politicians, then we need to empower our Ummah to go into DC and stop putting people down for being in the liberal arts and things like that. We need to find a seat at the table to actually make these decisions. If the problem is that the refugee crisis is so bad, dude, you can literally volunteer right now with so many organizations to go to the border as we speak and help the Ukrainians who are crossing over. I am going to say again, it is worth saying, the media is turning white refugees into this sweet, kind, gentle thing, and oh, poor white refugees, we'll welcome them into our community. It's messed up because the same Russian bombs that are falling on Ukraine fell on Syria. Those same bombs killed my family. And we're somehow being but the Arabs, they're violent and stuff. Anyways, that's not true. That's not true. The death of a baby hurts no matter what color your skin is. And man, there's poetry was what I did. I was pissed off poetry. If you Google my early stuff, you're gonna be like, this girl is loud and angry. That's it. That's all they knew me as, and that was my contribution. But contribute. Don't complain. Contribute. And that anger is pure. It is pure. It just can't be it. And you have to source its actual well, which I think is sadness. Not what we said before. But I think it's worth journaling about, brainstorming. What are the ways we can actually make an impact, man? Because there are photographers who are taking pictures of the different refugees and the different races and then showcasing that. That it makes an impact. You can use art, you can use politics, you can, you know, just don't lose yourself in the anger. We've lost a lot of good, stable men to the anger of this war. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So I hope that answers your question.
We have time for one more question.
So I know that your culture and religion are like a big inspiration for your art and poetry. And like because of that, like do you ever feel like because of the way that you like represent yourself that that's the only light that sometimes people can view you in and like do you ever feel like sharing a story that is about you but about a different side of you?
Yeah, great question. I actually, we had a lot of conversations before this event. I keep going to. It took me 25 years to start using the word I in my poetry. Yeah, and you bring an interesting thing because I think I originally went into this with a sense of duty. I'm here, I have a skill with language. Alhamdulillah, I have something here and I can use it to help people. But I think in the midst of that, like that identity crisis that I referenced earlier, I think that's when I realized like, I don't know who I am outside the context of these labels and these things that I have to defend and build around. And so, yeah, I do think the whole mental health aspect is a big piece of it. It still connects to my identity and all of that, but it's really informed a new aspect of my writing. I'm working on a whole new collection right now. It's called The Jackals in My Heart. That was inspired by the tombs and the pharaohs of Egypt, and it's different. And it's more about like me and my like relationship with the higher. And yeah, I'm kind of like not always trying to just be this like Muslim representative. I'm like falling apart sometimes. I'm like, I can't help everybody. I gotta go like deal with this. But that's a really insightful question, and we do have to remember that it is human first. It is human first, you know. And alhamdulillah, it is a great privilege to represent my religion. My Islam is so directly correlated to my womanhood, and I didn't realize that until a few weeks ago. And so it's hard to like take those pieces apart, and there's never going to be a time when that spiritual aspect of my religion doesn't impact me. But writing less about the labels and more about the internal experience really is how we can turn into a different life. So thank you for asking that question. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amal, for speaking with us today. It was an absolute honor, and I'm going to pass it off now to Lucy.
Can I stay?
You can stay if you want. Whatever you please.
Thank you so much, Amal, for all those incredible insights. At all of our events, we like to give our speaker a custom-made poster, and this event is no different. So shout out to William Lee from our communications committee for making this. And we're just so happy to have had you at the forum and at Berkeley. And there's a lot of work that goes behind all of our events at the Berkeley Forum. So I want to recognize our event manager, Riley, our communications lead, Monet, our lovely letter, also Miriam. Next we have and for Raimondo coming, who is actually the director of Grand Canyon Trust, which I know you mentioned the Grand Canyon earlier. That will be March 29th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And thank you so much for coming to our event today. We have a feedback form. Feel free to use the QR code above. We appreciate any feedback you have to give. And also to stay in the loop with all of our events, please like us on Facebook and feel free to visit our website. And if you would like to, you can help support us by Venmoing us any amount of money, and it goes towards putting on events like this one. So definitely, we just want to thank you so much for coming out tonight, and we really appreciate all of you. So thank you so much, Amal, for such an incredible event.